Welcome to Tiny Travelers, brought to you by Baby Quip, the family travel podcast where we make traveling with little ones easier, smarter, and more fun. I'm Sarah, a travel-loving mom who knows the joys and chaos of exploring with little ones. Each week, we dive into parent-tested strategies, travel hacks, and honest advice on what really works with kids. So buckle up, grab your travel planner, and let's make your next family adventure unforgettable. Pack light, travel happy. Welcome back to Tiny Travelers, brought to you by Baby Quip, the podcast where we talk about traveling with kids and traveling through life with kids. I'm Sarah Huff, gear expert at Baby Quip and host of Tiny Travelers. Around here, we talk about family travel, baby gear, and all the little things that make getting out of the door feel a whole lot easier. Today's guest knows the struggle firsthand. Gemma Ng is the founder of No Reception Club, a company born from her own experience traveling with young kids and wondering, why is this so hard? I prepared this for you and Daniel. She's gone on to create travel gear designed specifically for families, from travel diaper bags to packing solutions that make life on the go a little less chaotic. Gemma, welcome to Tiny Travelers.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you. Okay, so let's just start from where it all started. The moment that you were like, okay, what's going on here? Was there one trip or like a travel disaster where you looked at your husband, Daniel, who is a co-founder of No Reception Club, and thought, okay, there has to be a better way?
I love that question. And yes, there actually was this aha moment that founders talk about often that we were flying to Hawaii from San Francisco, and we had our baby, our first one in tow. He was about 7 months old, and we were just looking at each other frustrated because everything that could go wrong on that flight did go wrong. We had this diaper bag that really felt truly like a bottomless pit. We had a diaper blowout to deal with. We had the crying of our little one. And we were kind of just looking at each other, trying not to fight, if I'm honest, trying to find exactly what we needed. When we actually got to our destination, we met with Daniel's parents. We were there for a wedding. And after we put our little guy to bed, we went down to the hotel bar and got a drink. And we actually had this conversation. Sometimes you just need that. We just had this conversation and said, why don't we try to fix this? Why not us? My personal background is in fashion, and I had worked in product development, merchandising, and buying at different fashion companies like Ralph Lauren and Theory and Banana Republic. And his background was in e-commerce and finance. And we had long thought it would be really cool to start something together, but we never knew what. And it wasn't until this moment from this trip that we thought, oh my God, this is a problem that we have. How do we make traveling with kids easier with the right gear, and that we might uniquely have the background that combined we could fulfill it? So from that trip, a month later, we started working on it. I quit my job. I was the first one to quit. And Daniel worked on it nights and weekends. And that was sort of the birth of all of it.
Amazing. That's so awesome. What did you find was the biggest pain point of that trip?
The biggest pain point for us was the lack of organization, which ultimately made it slower and more frustrating to find exactly what we needed to deal with unpredictable problems coming up with our baby. And, you know, a little background on us, we have been together as a couple for 20 years. But before we actually had our first child, we had been together for about 13 years. And most of those years were long distance. So we traveled a ton to see each other, and also a ton when we were, whenever we wanted to reunite, we thought, well, we have to fly anyways. Let's go to different places and explore. So we pretty much had traveling kind of down. It was carry on only, gliding through the airport, super easy, packed the night before, already have my toiletry bag ready, just grab it to go. And, once we had kids, we knew we wanted to keep that side of ourselves as a couple and as individuals, and that wasn't going to stop once we had a baby. Fast forward, having a baby, we realized quickly that it was super different. And definitely that first year, we were not carry-on only. And I wish that we had been using Baby Quip that whole time, because we were not carry-on only that year. I think our very first trip, I packed a bathtub and an entire activity center. It was a road trip, but I don't know what I was doing. Like the activity center where the baby lies on their back and is swatting at hanging objects. I put that in our car thinking, well, that's what he does most of his wake window. We should bring it. And the bathtub, I didn't even know you could possibly bathe a baby in a sink. So I brought my full size, not collapsible bathtub. And anyway, I think that, we knew traveling was going to continue to be an important part of all of our lives. And so the frustration with not being able to do it in a streamlined way, in a way that felt like we had our things together and were organized, was a huge reason. I mean, the main reason why we decided to start a reception club and make bags that focus on organization for parents.
Isn't it so funny that, like, as a person prior to kids, you're like, I'm cool, I'm hip, I can just go and do whatever, and I'll be like that when I have kids. And then you have kids and you're like, no, I have to have the full bath products and all the things that I need for them. And like you said, you can't just, kind of grab your stuff and head out the door that same day. You do have to be a little bit more organized.
100%. 100%. It's humbling, to say the least. But as you know, with every trip, it gets easier. And with every trip, I pack later and later, because it becomes just motion memory. It just becomes kind of like a motion memory of what to pack.
I think our listeners are going to really, hopefully, love that, because it does get easier as you kind of know what you're doing. And as you use the right products, use the right services, have the right things, you can travel with kids and it doesn't have to be so hard. But
exactly,
a lot of parents do feel like they're doing something wrong when traveling with kids, and it feels stressful. Why do you think traveling with kids, babies, is so overwhelming?
I think overwhelming, you nailed it, is the key word that happens when you're not used to traveling with kids. And so your mind tends to go, most parents' minds tends to go to a place of, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? And imagining sort of worst case outlier scenarios and not being prepared for it. So there tends to be, I think, almost like an over preparation and an overpacking to combat this anxiety that I won't have exactly what I need. And if you've never traveled before, or if it isn't something you've done frequently, which is the case for so many, your mind can go into these crazy places. And then you end up, like me on my first trip, filling an entire SUV trunk full of things as though you're moving with your kid. And I think it isn't until you start actually going on trips and realizing which scenarios truly never come up or almost never, and which scenarios inevitably happen because there is some level of Murphy's Law that always comes into play, and that always creates a funny story later, that you're able to filter through, what do I actually need to bring? without experience, or you can replace experience, of course, with research and other people's experience, you don't have a filtering process. And so then you start to make some sort of list that ends up with 200 items of, I guess we should pack Q-tips. I guess we should pack only, or every single item that my baby uses during a 1 week span, I'm going to just bring that without really any discernment. So I think that is probably I think the leading feeling of overwhelm.
Mm-hmm. Too much stuff. Too much unknowns, maybe.
Too much, yes. Too much unknown equals too much stuff. And one other thing that I do think comes to mind immediately is when you don't have experience traveling with your specific baby, because we know every baby, they have a lot in common, but they also have a lot of unique things about them when it comes to eating, sleeping, this and that. You don't realize how flexible your child can be. And the beautiful thing about travel, as we know, is that the more you travel, the more flexibility and adaptability your baby and your child are developing inside them. But they have some of it as well that I think they just often come out of the womb with. And when you don't have examples of your baby being adaptable and flexible, you kind of assume they aren't. And when you assume they are not, you pack even more stuff because you assume the thing that I can get at the destination, the formula available, in France, and the diapers I can get in Mexico, my baby won't be able to like that. They only like the one that I buy at the special website. And, I think the more you travel, again, you realize, no, my kid can adapt. And the more you see that, the more you realize I don't have to buy or bring all of it in advance.
Yes. And the thing about traveling is, I've talked about this with other guests on the show before, is that it creates this adaptable spirit in your baby, in your kids. They get used to different situations, which you can carry over into your everyday life as well. And you also get to be a little bit more flexible and adaptable yourself on these trips with your kids. And that makes you thus a more adaptable and flexible person with your kids when you're home. So we talked about... Yes, exactly. We talked about bringing too much stuff. And I think, packing maybe is where things start to unravel, right? Because we have a plan in our head and then now it's time to execute. And that's where things might start going off the rails. What's the biggest packing mistake that families make?
I think the biggest mistake they make is that they bring things that they can buy when they're already there, or they bring too much of it. So I think the easiest thing that comes to mind is diapers. Diapers take up a lot of space. The younger your baby, the more space they take up. And if you are like me, early trips, you counted how many diapers your baby used per day. You multiplied it by 1.5, and then you multiplied it by the number of days, as though you're going somewhere that doesn't sell diapers. Maybe that does happen, but probably it's accessible at least when you land, or, at the first, I'm thinking of a Canadian reference, but let's say a Dwayne Reed or a Walgreens, you can probably find that in most places if you're traveling in North America. And so I think that's the number one mistake. Packing diapers. I would stretch, this might be more contentious to say, even formula. I used to bring, I did a combination of formula and nursing. And I used to think, I have to bring, these giant canisters of powder, or even worse, the ready-made. It takes up so much space in your carry-on. But I thought, my baby needs exactly this. They cannot adapt. Turns out when push came to shove and I just didn't have enough space, or I didn't bring enough, and I was forced to buy local diapers, local formula, In my case, it was mostly fine. It can be different for every baby. I would argue diapers, probably not that different for most kids in terms of their ability to adapt to them. So I think that's the fatal mistake. I would also say you could stretch it once the kids are older, toddlers and beyond, to saying you don't have to bring every item of food from home onto that flight. You can procure some things at the airport, on the flight. They can adapt, and it's actually, the novelty can be quite fun.
That's where you can try new things.
Exactly. And they usually, whether it's a success or not, it's one day. If for one day they are not getting every fruit and vegetable that they normally get, it's one day. And then you didn't have to bring all these things in your bag and then land to discover you have to throw them all away because you're not allowed to bring fruits and vegetables. which happens. You know, you see the dogs walking around with the guards and you're thinking, oh shoot, I think I do have an avocado. I have to immediately throw this away.
And that dog is looking for the avocado, nothing else.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to arrest you if you have an avocado, actually.
They kind of will. We're not even exaggerating.
When you're talking about bringing the diapers times 1.5, it reminds me of, like, you know how everybody, like adults say, like, oh, I'm going to pack 20 pairs of underwear. And you're like, when have you ever, like, had to use 20 pairs of underwear in 5 days? But you're kind of just like, what if I pee my pants 3 times a day? And that probably won't happen. And if it does, you could probably go somewhere and buy, you know, something to help out or do your laundry or something. So I do remember bringing way too many diapers with me the first time, and it took up like half of the suitcase. And then I like forgot to bring my own shoes or something because it was just taking up so much room. So that is a really good piece of advice. You can procure things in other places. Exactly. What's something that parents almost always bring that they don't need?
That's a really good one. I think in terms of my opinion, but actually I talk to thousands of customers. We still do personally answer the majority of our customer service questions. I think what people bring too often that they don't need is too many layers and clothing for weather that is not likely to actually happen.
That was going to be my answer too.
and it's bulky. You think, well, what if it is cold? Maybe we should pack the thicker jacket and a fleece and the boots. And it's like, if you're not going on some sort of ski vacation, you don't need to bring that. I think that planning marginally for weather extremes is fine, but probably not more than one more layer. I'm always like, they can wear that same layer every day that it rains. We're not having variation.
Right. And very similar to adults, you probably aren't going to wear all those outfits that you bring. You're going to wear the same things that you wear every day. And, you know, the same yoga pants, the same tank top, same sweatshirt every day, at least for me.
And 100%. And I just thought of one more thing that always comes up with toddlers and new parents traveling. They bring too many toys. There really is this worry that my kid won't have anything to do at the hotel or the Airbnb. That's not really the case. The novelty of the environment is so often enough. Bringing a couple open-ended toys, if even, is more than enough. Filling half your luggage with toys is completely unnecessary and such a waste of space.
Right. And books too. Very heavy also.
Oh, they're so heavy.
Yeah. I mean, you can read the same 2 books over and over if you really need to, or you could get a book on your phone and then that's it, you know?
I was so guilty of the books before.
Yes. But listen, if you do have to have toys and books and that's just like your thing, Baby Quip You can rent a box of toys and books and have it at your Airbnb or hotel before you even arrive. And then if you absolutely have to have your kids playing with toys and reading books and stuff, then they'll just bring it to you. And that way you don't have to pack. That's one of the things that our providers do the best.
That's awesome. And I will say, traveling with kids, you realize how much more time you spend at the accommodation than when you didn't have kids. The accommodation is not just a place to sleep. You may be there a lot because you're nap trapped, or you have two children and one is still napping and one is not napping. So having a service like that for Baby Quip where you can rent the toys is super awesome, because maybe you have to spend 2 hours extra in the afternoon with your 3-year-old who doesn't nap while the 1-year-old is napping. So that's very cool. That is very cool.
Is there something that you think that parents almost always forget?
I think something that I have certainly forgotten that I don't anymore is medication. So, I mean, of course you're going to bring the medication that they always bring, I always bring Tylenol, but little things like antibiotic cream or a hydrocortisone if some unexpected rash comes up, or, having those just on hand, because things like this always come up when it's a bit inconvenient to go run out. I think that's something that is often forgotten, at least by me. I bring Band-Aids and the Tylenol, of course, but, with experience, I realized I should bring more than that, because Murphy's Law, funny things do happen. I think
there was a period of time when I was traveling with my 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and every time we went somewhere, without failure, someone would wake up with a fever, and I would be like, what is happening?
Yes.
Why is everyone getting a fever?
Or a nosebleed. Alcohol is fun when you're on a flight. I don't mean pack it for the accommodation, but when you're on a flight, have tissue. Have tissue, have napkins. This somehow comes up where you just, whether it's a bloody nose or a runny nose or something, the plane is so cold, you're always looking for something to wipe their face. I find so and
true.
you might have burp clots, but you want to throw these away. So having tissue, I think, is something that we go through it so much that we use it up, and I'm always out of it and just, bothering people like, does anyone have tissue? Does anyone have tissue?
Can I get a napkin? You're hoarding the airplane cocktail napkins.
Yes, I've become that person.
I have napkins from every location, in all of my bags, my car, my travel bag. You just never know. How do you personally stay organized when you're traveling with kids?
So what I do and I'm assuming we're talking about the kid items, because the grown-up items are never really the problem. For the kid items, I always think of things in terms of moments, or in terms of what is the activity I need to do with the kid, which they are pretty similar, but they evolve a little bit based on age from baby to kid. So I think through, what will I probably be doing with my baby? I'll either be feeding them, I'll be changing their diaper, I'll be changing their clothes, I'll be playing with them, and potentially I'll be putting them to bed. So if I think through those 5 things, I kind of think of what is the bare minimum amount of items I need to accomplish each of these activities. And then in my case, of course, the getaway bag, which is our travel diaper bag, I organize the items associated with these main activities of feeding, changing diapers, changing clothes, playing, into different sections of the bag. It's kind of the reason why we set up our bag to have shelves inside. It's so that you have clear compartments within the bigger main compartment, so that whether you or you're guiding a fellow caregiver need to grab something specific to these activities, you can remember, okay, middle compartment, that's where I put the snack boxes. Top compartment, that's where I put toys. Bottom compartment, I put changes of clothes. Side compartment, I might put diaper changing supplies. So by thinking in terms of activities, this is how I kind of think about what I would put in, I'd call the diaper bag, or as the kids get older, the personal item that has the things that I'm going to need on the flight, in the car, on the train, on the bus, whatever your mode of transit is. And then in terms of staying organized with their items, once we're actually at the destination, most of the time, this is speaking to clothing. Obviously, there are the other activities, and I do organize things by that activity system again, but most of their carry-on or luggage is clothing. As you can imagine, I've thought about this a lot and have been asked about, do you pack by outfit? Do you pack by category? And I would say, well, first of all, I would say everything I pack is mix and match. I'm not that girl who's saying on Monday they wear this top, this bottom, this, I don't have kids who wear a ton of accessories other than baseball hats, but I have friends with daughters who have and the bow and the sunglasses and it's adorable and it's a whole look. We don't do that. We only think in terms of categories. So I put all the tops together into one section of our hideaway duffel, which is our carry-on, all the bottoms together, all the diapers or underwears and socks together, and the layers, if any, are also together. And I think that allows you flexibility based on what your kid feels like wearing. To be honest, I think by 2, my kids started to have very strong opinions about their clothing. So the way that we set up our luggage is so that you can open, your hideaway carry-on duffel, and you can the kid can almost self-service themselves, dare I say Montessori-like. And so that tends to be how I pack. And you didn't ask, but I'm just going to say I am pro folding. I like folding more than rolling. I find that when I roll, I don't know what I'm looking at. But when I fold it, it's very clear to me what the different category is. Yeah, that's pretty much how I stay organized. Yes, by activity or by...
That's really good advice. Because when I talk about family travel and, keeping organized, and what to pack, I tell people, think about what you're going to be doing, right? Eating, sleeping, playing, and probably getting around, which we're not talking about necessarily like travel gear right now, but yeah. So, and then I think, what are you going to pack for each of those things minimally? And then with your products, you can just easily put them into different sections, which is great because let's say mom packs because mom does most of the packing. You can then direct dad or grandma or grandpa or aunt, uncle, whatever, to go to the clothing section, go to the feeding section and get me this, so that things, you're not the only one carrying the burden of where everything is.
Exactly. And when you keep packing in the same way, for example, my kids are now 7 and 4. The 7-year-old knows where I put the things. He gets it. I don't have to say, hey, the shirts are here, the pajamas are there, your socks are there, your underwear. He knows because I put it in the same pocket every time. And, one day we'll graduate to him packing, but it is really, really helpful because they will develop their own sort of navigation of the different bags, the gear that you use. So you don't actually have to advise them. I mean, my older one, I could tell him to go into the backpack to grab a toy, for his little brother.
Yeah, that's so great too. And teaching your kids to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining and that sort of thing is also such a great thing about traveling because come on guys, we're all kind of doing this on our own and as a family together, and we all need to be able to pitch in and all that kind of stuff, even if you're 7 and 4.
Exactly. That is one of the biggest things I love about traveling, this feeling of you're kind of, you're not even kind of, you literally are problem solving new situations together. And that really, brings out the best in everyone. And it kind of also has had this wonderful benefit of showing me what my kids are capable of in a way that doesn't come up as much day to day, because our day to day, as you can imagine, it's quite routine. You know, we have daycare, we have preschool, we have elementary school. And when things tend to repeat every day, there aren't as many new challenges.
Exactly. So speaking of challenges, let's talk about airports, road trips, all the in-between moments for traveling. We talked about napkins, but what's something that's always within arm's reach when you travel?
It feels like a cop-out to say baby wipes, but that is true. I'm not someone who has had to carry diapers for a while now. And I was very lucky with both kids potty training quite early, I think. Like before 3, not crazy early. We were not those people who did elimination communication with newborns. We were not that capable. I know, when I hear that, I'm like, think of the money you could save if you were not buying diapers.
Right.
The diaper costs are exorbitant, as we both know. But I would say I always have diaper wipes on hand, and I always have at least a couple small snacks, because so often what might look like a bad mood is just hunger. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much that. I mean, I think we all are in this generation. I'm always holding water bottles. I think we have 2 for the kids. And then my husband and I always have thermoses, which have our coffee that then, becomes water later on. So kind of always having something that they could eat or drink on the go, and also having a baby wipe to wipe up whatever they've just done.
Yeah. And even if you don't need baby wipes anymore for wiping, having a package of some sort of wet wipe everywhere you go. Yes,
exactly.
I mean, even if you're not traveling, but it's just on my day-to-day basis. I spill something, somebody spills something on me. My kids have wet hands, like sticky faces, sticky seats. Who knows? You need stuff to wipe.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Even in your own car, stuff can get sticky. Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorite travel hacks that you feel really make a difference?
Well, it feels like I should not say my bags, but they definitely do make a difference when you have the right bags and the right gear.
Yes. I mean, honestly, having the right gear makes travel that much easier. And you don't have to have a ton of gear, just the things that make your life easier.
Yes. I would say for me, having the right gear. So, of course, our travel diaper bag, the getaway bag, and our carry-on hideaway duffel help you stay organized. But beyond that, I have found having the right stroller has been game-changing, having the right travel car seat. I think that there can be this feeling of, and I certainly was in this camp, so I'm not saying that I wasn't like this in the beginning, of I'll just use the stroller and the car seat that I use at home while I travel. Even if these items are so clunky and so heavy, I will bring, I think I had, I had the Up a Baby Mesa. And remember, this is circa 2019, 2020. And I swear I love that stroller. It is heavy to bring that stroller when you are traveling internationally. Mm-hmm. And, to bring that stroller into a restaurant, even folded, it still looks like a full stroller. And I would bring the full size car seat and this and that. And it's so clunky. And so I think having the travel versions of those things helped me a lot. Like personally, we've just in the last few months stopped bringing a stroller, but the one that I still have and occasionally still pull out is the oh my gosh, what is that name? Yes, the Bugaboo Butterfly. Mm-hmm. That's an incredible stroller. it's just so good. It has a gigantic basket underneath that most travel strollers don't have to put all the things that inevitably end up there. And in terms of our car seat that we still very much use for our 4-year-old, we use the Waby. And that one is definitely a big investment, but across 2 kids over, 6 years, so worth it. It's so compact. It's wonderful. So compact, so light.
Well, you said having the right stroller. Okay, so my kids are almost 11 and almost 9, which gosh. I know you're looking at me and thinking, Sarah, you're 16. How can you have an 11-year-old? Well, I do.
You had them young.
I obviously have a lot of strollers at home because I rent baby gear and I'm a baby gear expert, but my kids don't technically need a stroller anymore. However, last week we went to Disneyland and we still brought a stroller because
I get that.
We wanted to be able to tote all our stuff around, hold all the snacks. Somebody wanted to sit down at some point. We had to change of shoes, all the water bottles. You still need a stroller for almost everything, in my opinion. And if you can get a good one, a compact one that just works with your lifestyle, it is so helpful. So don't get rid of your strollers, even when your kids are out of stroller age, because you still may need it. You could rent one from Baby Quip or
we could rent one. I think that's kind of the key, because when you're not using it at the airport or in the road trip, to not have to actually let it take up space and be a thing to manage. I think that's wow, it's not too late for me to try. It's not too late for me to try renting from Baby Quip, and I'm going to
No, it's not. Oh, you can rent so many different things. This is slightly off topic, but if you're traveling to a beach destination, you can rent your beach gear, your umbrella, chairs, towels, all that kind of stuff. If you're going on a camping trip, you can rent camping gear. If you're traveling with an older family member or multi-generational travel, you can get your mobility gear now from Baby Quip. So I'm just saying there's lots of opportunity to continue renting gear so you don't have to travel with everything like we talked about. So one thing I love about your story is that you traveled a lot. You were long distance with your husband and you traveled a lot. You went on a lot of trips, but that didn't stop when you had kids. You just adapted and obviously created a whole bunch of adaptable gear. So why do you think travel is still such an important part of your family's life?
Well, I have a couple different things to that. Well, the first is backward thinking. Travel and exploring and understanding different parts of the world and having my own experiences and connecting with people through travel. All of that is such a strong part of who I am. And that didn't change when I became a parent. That part of me didn't. And I think we feel this, as parents going through the pre-parent to the pre-kid to the post-kid life. Most of the parts of ourselves still exist. We just have less time to invest in those parts, especially in those early, let's call it 5 years. And what has been so beautiful is that I never had to let go of that side of myself because I got to share it with my own kids by bringing them. And, one of these hashtags I love on Instagram is bring the kids. And we're very much, Daniel and I, people who have embraced that, not just in travel, but in other environments that you might think, oh, you don't bring kids, you don't bring kids to a nice restaurant. You don't bring kids to the art gallery, but you can see so much how your kids, when they're used to it, they can be in these situations that there are so many stereotypes that, a kid will not sit still through the dinner. The kid will not. I mean, they may end up under the table, but it's still fun and you can still go.
Right. And how are they going to learn about all that stuff and how to act in public or how to be on a plane or how to be on a bus or whatever you're doing unless you take them into those spaces?
Exactly. A second part of my answer to this is I have seen and I continue to see so much growth in my children from these experiences. I think, we touched on the adaptability and the flexibility that travel fosters in them and also gives them a chance to even just demonstrate what they already have. And that's been incredible, but also this openness to different ways of living. It took a couple trips for me to realize my toddlers didn't really need toys. It's because I think, we can get very set in our ways. This is what they do when they're at home. They need to have a pile of Lego or Magna-Tiles or whatever. And, there's a place for that, especially on the plane. Having some of these toys help quite a bit on the plane. But once you travel and you're at a destination, it's been so cool to see how much less stuff that they need. And I think they also recognize that. And, it goes without saying, as we travel and we see different ways of life, we can also, what has been a cool way to see that is we often stay at an Airbnb where a family lives there, but they're renting out their place during their own summer vacation. And when we walk through other people's homes, and we're always trying to be as respectful as possible, often the host will say, you can play with the toys in the house. And we realize, dear God, we have so many more toys in North America than they have in Europe and Asia, and that's a function of space, but it's also a function of culturally, they're not having, necessarily these birthday parties where they invite the whole class, which I love that part of our culture, but it can lend to too many things. It can lend to a kid getting, so many toys, more toys than other kids have in their entire room. And I love that my kids get to see that, like, hey, this is a reasonable number of toys. We're going to go have a bit of a donation run. And the last thing, which I now think I should have led with and is really kind of one of the core reasons why we started a reception club, that I think family travel is so important, is our day-to-day lives as grown-ups, as parents, are so busy. We have so much to do in terms of getting everything managed in our home, in our families, in our work, as adult, daughters and sons, and as sisters and as friends. Our day-to-day lives are very, very busy. And what travel really does is gives us this chance to fully disconnect from so many day-to-day responsibilities and schedules and just focus on creating memories with our kids without all of the stuff that, regular lives are made up of. And I think these, as much as it's creating core memories for them, it's creating that for us as parents. Like, somehow things that happen when I'm on a trip, they're, because the environment is probably different and I'm more focused and more locked in, as they say, I really feel like I remember them more. Like, I remember the first time my first son touched grass when he was 3 months old and his feet touched grass, and his reaction, or the first time my other son swam and it happened to be at a beach. And these things, the memories feel so potent, when you're not distracted by all the understandable responsibilities that you tend to have when you're at home.
I love that. I really do. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on something that I admire about No Reception Club, which is your partnership with Baby to Baby. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and why giving back has been such an important part of your company's mission?
When we started No Reception Club, we always knew that as we grew and scaled, we wanted to scale an impact that would help other families, especially families in need. And something that came to our attention, honestly, it was so funny. We had been donating to other charities, but we were made known, or Baby to Baby was made known to us through the celebrity actress Olivia Munn, who I'm a huge fan of. And we saw her posting about this organization that gave diapers across the United States to families who needed it. And as we touched on briefly in this conversation, diapers are extremely, extremely expensive. After food and shelter, they are often the most expensive thing for new parents. And it's not the kind of thing you can't have. You literally do need to get diapers for the baby. So when we heard about this organization making diapers at a lower cost, as well as partnering with incredibly generous diaper companies and giving them to families, we knew that it felt like such a natural fit. We make a travel diaper bag. This is an organization that gives diapers. So it felt also very cool to enable people who were buying bags from us for their own families to support other families around them with such a core need. Travel, we know, is a real blessing and is a privilege, and diapers shouldn't be. That's just a core thing. And I think for us, we're very mission driven. We want to help people go on more adventures with their kid, but we also just want to make it easier to parent. So it felt like a natural fit pretty early on.
I really super love that. And finally, where can listeners find No Reception Club and learn more about your products?
They can go to our website, which is noreceptionclub.com. And I'm sure you will include it in the show notes because,
it will be,
of course, we chose a brand name that is very long and quite a mouthful. And we also are on Instagram as No Reception Club. And my favorite place, honestly, is we have a Facebook Clubhouse group called the No Reception Clubhouse. And we share, Daniel and I are writing in there every week about what's going on behind the scenes, what's coming up. So that's another great place to stay tuned to what's happening and talk to us directly.
Awesome. Okay. All of that will definitely be in the show notes. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you've been putting off a trip because it just feels like too much work, I hope this episode reminds you that it doesn't have to be perfect to be memorable. Make sure to subscribe to Tiny Travelers, brought to you by BabyQuip, for more conversations about family travel and navigating life with kids. Until next time, safe travels wherever life with kids takes you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tiny Travelers. I hope today's episode gave you the inspiration and practical tips to make your next family adventure easier, stress-free, and more fun. If you loved today's episode, head over to the show notes for promo codes and exclusive resources to help you plan unforgettable trips with your little ones. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy travels, and I'll see you next time.